So can I get a round of applause? Thank you.
Hi, good to see you all. Mate, thanks for calling me Matthew. Only my mother calls me Matthew. So that's special, thank you. Okay, so I'm playing Makerble. Our whole strapline is change the world your way. I thought that what I do is talk to you about where the idea came from, then zoom in on the idea, and then give you some tips. Well, not necessarily tips, because I've made loads of mistakes, but just tell you about the journey I went towards getting there. So it started with, whoa, this is, oh my god, am I the same? It started with my folks who, when I was growing up, always used to sponsor a child. That was always in the back of my mind. It's a good thing to do, I thought. And so when I was about 14, my sister and I used to see those Oxfam commercials, and they were like, just give £2 a month. But back then, our pocket money was just £2 a month. Hands up, Horton Heath crew in the house. Just me. And so, yeah, then I went to school, and I got involved with a bit of charity stuff there. But it was really when I went to uni, got my loan, £4,000 loan, and thought, this is the most money I've ever had in my life. So I then started sponsoring this child, this guy called Angel, £15 a month. Not that much, unless you're a student and you've got like beer expenses, phone expenses, food expenses, maybe the odd book. So I had to cancel my sponsorship because I just couldn't really afford it ongoing. But I had this idea, and I was just like, if I got my friends chipping £1 a month each, we could all sponsor a kid for £1. And I think because it rhymed, I was like, oh, this has got some legs. So got one of my friends singing, this girl called Sarah, and we started sponsoring Kid for £1 at the University of Birmingham. And it was surprisingly popular, and it kind of just grew through word of mouth. Although I guess one of the lessons was that the first set of posters that we did just said, sponsor a kid for £1, and no one really got it. It was only when we explained that it was 15 or 18 pounds in the end, 18 students giving £1 equals X, Y, Z. I don't know if it means, like sometimes you just need to break things down. So when you're marketing your new apps, don't be disheartened when at first people don't get it. It might just be you need to re-articulate how you do it. Well, anyway, after having done this, I was studying chemistry with French, maths and physics. And I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what I want to do after university. And two of my friends were at Channel 4 and said, Matt, you should enter this Channel 4 award. It took me a while to enter because I didn't really believe what I'd done was that important. But I did, and I won. And the reason I put this here is because it was a real turning point, because it made me think, well, yeah, I've had this idea at university, maybe it's got scope beyond that. And so I was on a megabus, again, still not really having that much money. And I saw another one going the other way, saying £1 into city travel. And I thought, what if we switched it from being sponsor a kid for £1 and made it £1 international project? I wanted to take that notion of relational giving that you get with child sponsorship and apply it to projects all around the world. And so that's kind of the genesis for the idea. So the way that we talk about it is, like most people have a desire to change the world to some extent. And having worked in some charities along my journey, like people are motivated by doing something, but unless you're in a charity, you don't necessarily see the progress that's been made. Instead, you tend to get generic reports. You might get someone on the street asking you for money. There's no sense in knowing where your money has actually gone and what it's achieved. And the research that's out there shows that if that data was more available, £665 million per year would be given extra. And so, in my mind, I mean, we were kind of working on this already, but getting this market research really validated the idea. And in about 2008, as a team, I'd kind of seen this happening before. Some friends and I started something called the Youth Funding Network. We do events similar size to this, where we'd have 3 charities pitch in like a Dragon's Den style, but it wasn't a arena environment. The audience would then say, okay, I'm going to give like £10, £25 to these different projects. But through that, we've been running that for like 5 years. It's raised about £80,000, and it's shown that people give when the donation is very transparent. So it's that notion that I wanted to bring to life. And then just through doing lots of like market research, so looking at data reports, but I'd also encourage you to do Google surveys. You can do a Google survey for like £100, get 1,000 respondents, interview people. This thing came out from a HSBC banker who was just saying it really brought it to life. If he knew where the money was going, then it would be cool. But being realistic, like our lives are busy. People aren't thinking, oh, what's the coolest new charity to give to? And so with Makerble, our thinking was, how can we make it very straightforward? Let's frame everything within this construct to help make change, like problem, solution, and impact that you create. So the way that Makerble works is that it's a subscription service. You choose the causes that you care about, and then Makerble gives you a personalized stream of projects that meet your preferences. And that stream comes from the causes you select, but also other things such as your Facebook Connect and places that you've been and things like that. And then what you get when you log in is your personalized change timeline that visualizes the impact that you've made. Everyone has a change score, which is an aggregate of all the impact that you've made, and you can follow your friends. And as you create impact, that's then auto-published to your Facebook timeline, crucially never saying how much you've given, but only just inspiring other people to give as well. And the great thing for charities, like we had a meeting with UNICEF on Friday, what excites them is not only the donations that they receive through Makerble, but also the ability to earn loyalty from donors, whereby a donor can then say, okay, I want to subscribe to this charity because I really love that project I've supported and I want to do more. And so the key advantage for them is, as a charity, they save money in terms of from a fundraising perspective. Typically, a charity will spend about 15p raising a pound. With Makerble, it only costs them 5p because we have a very flat transaction fee. But it's also great for their awareness and things like that. And what we're doing is really focusing on our marketing. We know that charities don't really have resources to be doing additional fundraising, and coming from an advertising background, my thinking was, how can I create a campaign that really touches people and makes them think, yeah, how can I change the world my way? And so we've got a team that are working on that. This is the team that are working on that. And I'll go back and talk about how the team came through. And actually what I'm going to do is just skip through some of these slides because they're not necessarily essential for right now. But we have this is taking from our business plan in terms of where we want to get, how we want to get there. So in terms of making it, the journey, the first thing was piloting. I would strongly advocate everyone who has an idea to see how can you do it with the minimal resources that you have now. Part of the reason I'm able to kind of be here, having secured £100,000 of match funding, is because I've done the Sponsor a Kid for a Quid thing with minimal resources. So the advantage of doing that is that you learn cheaply. I was able to do posters, see that they didn't work, and then reiterate. It gives you some success, it gives you a story. As a result of having done that, I won that award, and then there's a whole variety of other things that happened, such as me then becoming a fellow of the RSA, which is where I met this guy, who then got me some funding further downstream. And so the more that you do to put yourself out there by taking the small steps, the more momentum that builds behind you as a person, and also the idea. The second thing is funding. So the way that Makerble is structured from a funding perspective is, initially I got a grant from an organisation called Unlimited. That was £5,000. They give that to social entrepreneurs. So I got that grant and worked with an agency that I'd known from my ad agency times. They were a tech development company. This was 2007. So I was like, I'm blaming this on me being very youthful. I was like, let's just call it Warblo. Anyone Jamaican in that house? I have no support. So Warblo is this Jamaican word that's kind of showing love to your community. So I thought that's a good name. So we worked with a design agency called Raw to put this together. And the tech agency, we were working on it, but my fault. I as I guess a 24, 25-year-old, was very perfectionist in terms of I got this small budget, but I want to do all this stuff, which is why it's great that these guys have tiered their development. So the thing that I would say is, don't try and do everything when you've just kind of got your first slice of funding. Really be pragmatic about what you can do. Because we got halfway through this and then kind of had to abandon it because we ran out of budget and nothing was able to happen. So kind of a little bit embarrassed. I was like, I'm not going to give up on this, but I need to finance this on my own. So I kind of saved up some money, and a key thing here is that if you're someone who has an idea for your own startup, you probably have a fair amount of skills and insight that you can use within your own industry, either as a valued employee or be as a consultant. And this really took me by surprise, because having worked in advertising and then start working on my idea, and then having it the first version not really take off, I was like, okay, I need to make some money. I'll go back into advertising as a freelancer. So I thought that's a sensible way to start. But what surprised me was the extent to which people were A, paying me more than I'd been paid before, and B, really valued what I was adding. And the reason being is because, I suppose if I'm someone who's thinking about a tech startup coming from an advertising background, inside an advertising agency or a marketing agency, I'm going to be really valuable, and that's what they saw. So similarly, looking at the sectors that you're all in, one way of moving forward might be going freelance, because you're probably going to be really valuable inside different client groups which you might not have thought would be relevant for you. The second thing is, I put rejection as standard. While saving up some money, I was also applying for grants, and many of them really didn't come through. So what I'd say is just be persistent. but also I was always proactive in terms of getting feedback. And I got 3 of my friends who I knew from like school and from other areas, and just asked them to be really honest over the course of 2012 in terms of like nailing down all the problems with the app, such that I felt that we had something that was a lot more robust this year when I then got a team together and applied for my unlimited grant, which is £100,000 of match funding, which like sounds like I just got it in a blink of an eye, but really it's been a case of having had feedback and gone through all these iterations to get there. Again, coming from like an advertising background, for me the UX or user experience or user interface, brand design is really important. Because when you're building something, it can't just be something that works. People need to have an emotional reaction to it. So that's just like one thing, and we kind of had a long journey in terms of developing our brand and logo and look and feel. But when it came to how the site was going to work, I'd spent ages figuring out how it's going to work. And I started off using PowerPoint. So this is just one of the screenshots that I put together, really clumsily done, and some epic like 60-page Word document outlining all the functionality, which my 3 friends were really diligent in going through. But having done that, I then went to Raw, which was the agency I'd worked with before, and over the last, this is like 2013 now, so between 2007 and 2013, I'd still maintained a good relationship with them, sending them different clients who would like do work for them, so that when I went to them this year, they were like, Matt, it's probably going to cost about 15k for the design. We're only going to charge you 2.5k up front. And we're going to give you a discount that you can pay the rest when you've got funding. Which has meant that we've been able to have really high-end design and wireframing talent because of that relationship that's been built. So that's been really helpful. So what they did, they took this and turned it into these. So these like wireframes, a lot cleaner and smarter. They thought about the user journey in ways that I hadn't done, because they're designers, I'm just someone with an idea. And then from there, I was in New York, because UKTI always apply for things. This is a random like point on the side, but always apply for things. So I applied for a trip to go to New York to meet some US investors, and they gave it to me. So I was like, cool. So I went there, and while I was there, met some investors, and got this through from Morse. This was in April this year. I was beside myself in disappointment. I was like, guys, we spent so long thinking about the user experience for Makerble. It needs to be fun, inspiring. This is yellow and dry. And so what I'd say is, again, you need to be persistent and really like stay true to what it is you're trying to create from a brand perspective and how you want people to feel about it. So after various iterations, we then got through to the design that you saw earlier on, but it really wasn't a case of getting there quickly. You need to like go through various design iterations. Market research has been something that I would also encourage everyone to do. So initially, so probably around like 2010, 2011, I put out a survey on Facebook asking like people like 10 questions about how they like to give. I then did like a load of interviews myself. Other things that I did was read loads of research reports and read books and then contact the authors of those, and they're now my advisors. I mean, when you go to people and say, I read this report that you wrote, I really want to talk to you to find out more about the market, then they're A, flattered, and B, it's something they care about, so they're definitely willing to come on board in a free capacity. So that's why I've been able to kind of, I feel, go above the level that I should be at in terms of getting this industry support that we've got and being able to get introductions to people like UNICEF, even though we're just a small team of everyone, people who don't really have relationships at that level. I just want to say a quick thing about the team, because the way that I met them all really just shows the value of building relationships and keeping them. So obviously I know myself, but the commercial director, Ahmed, having got my grant from Unlimited the first time round, they were like, Matt, you're like one of our top young social entrepreneurs, and I was like, I haven't really done anything yet. But they put me on this 1-week course, which I didn't want to go on because I was really busy doing stuff. I went, and as a result, met Ahmed, who then, like 2 years later, gave me some consulting work, and now he's our commercial director, and he's great because he like brings in so much value in terms of saying no to so many of the kind of crazy ideas that I have, but I really value his input. Annabelle, she's the girl that I co-founded YTFN with in 2008. I got an email from Unlimited, and they were just saying, there's this girl called Annabelle who's got this idea to do something around events and crowdfunding. So I emailed her and I was like, I'm definitely up for getting involved. And over that 5 years, we've now had like a really good friendship that yes, she's come on board on the team, and she like brings so much value because she knows so much more about charities than I do. Kate Gold, I knew in advertising. We were like on the same grad scheme. And then I left advertising. She and I had an idea to do something like Spare Room, but for graduates. We called it Graduate Flatmates. So we like built this app. Well, it was a website at the time. And then we kind of got it to prototype stage, and then we were both really busy and didn't do anything with it, which is a shame. But the point that I think, the fact that we did that meant that like now she's so much keener to work with me because we've kind of got lots of working heritage. And then Sebastian, he's cool because when I first came to Croydon Tech City about a year ago, I didn't have a developer. And the reason that the way I met Sebastian was I got involved with this network called The Connectors in like 2006. And I met this guy called Raji Day. And at his launch event for his company, I met this guy called Christian Bush. And Christian Bush was like, you should join this network called Sandbox. And I was like, no, because it's going to be really expensive. And I looked online, and it was free. So I was like, cool. So I applied, and I joined. And then I emailed them and saying, I need a developer. And they gave me Sebastian. And it's just amazing, because he's doing our work for 5K. And he's done, like, the work is probably worth about 20K. And so through building relationships, you can really get good things done. Theo, he's the designer from Raw, who I'd given work to, and so he's come back and given me this for free. Kate, I did Fame in my first year at university. This is before the child sponsorship thing. I had several friends that hadn't got into Fame, and so I was like, I'm going to organise musical theatre workshops for people who didn't quite make the cut. And so we did those workshops, and Kate Campbell went to that, so we became friends through that, and we both did lots of fundraising on campus for different charities, and now she's on the team in marketing and brings a fresh perspective because she's got a psychology background, which is really smart. And then finally, Liam, really key point here in terms of putting yourself out there. Around about June 2012, I thought I really should start commenting on any news articles within the charity fundraising space, so I did loads of that. And then in December, I just got back from being away. I got a phone call from this guy called Liam. He was like, hi, I'm a partner at Fuel, which is one of the UK's largest independent marketing agencies. He was like, I'm just about to leave and start my own consultancy, and I want to do some pro bono work. I read about you on The Guardian. I saw one of your comments. I want to offer you my services for free. And he's come on board as like a pro bono consultant for the last 9 months. And he's contributed so much to our projections and actually some of the product features as well. And so I feel that the team has just come about, not through me practically designing it, but I guess through years of building relationships and putting myself out there. So I would really encourage you to A, look back to the people who are within your network, and B, going forwards, see what more you can do to put yourself out there, because you'll be surprised at what comes back. And I think on that note, I'm going to end and ask for any questions. Thank you.
So, hands up if you've got a question. Gentleman in the back.
Matthew, that's a really good idea you got there. Very humanitarian. We do web-based hosting funding. I was going to say, how much to have the 100k investment so far? I mean, you've got quite a few people on payroll.
Oh, okay. So in terms of how I funded it between now and, like, say, March, there was some savings. I had about 5k of savings, and I got 3k in really small grants. And then I took a 10k startup loan, which I used to then pay the team on, most people on 2 days a week. And then the design agency, they're on a deferred payment, which is handy. And then with the 100k, that's a match funding pot that kind of sits in the air until we raise the equivalent funds between 25k and 100k. So we've got an investment round that's happening in, say, October, with 3 angel investors who are going to put in 25k, and then we're looking to close another round, say early next year, which will be a proper round to like fund 9 months. But the 25k is just to fund about 3 months. We can get moving sooner. So it's been loan, savings, and grant.
Did I say a question down here before?
Yes. What's the 3 most challenging things you've had to do since starting Makerble?
I might have a challenging thing to do in terms of maybe. So the issue with like working with people is that sometimes people aren't working to the standard that you want them to be working to, and so something that's been a challenge is like working with people who I know, so they're kind of in friend territory, and be like, we need to up your game in this area in terms of A, being more accountable in terms of how you're spending your hours, or B, meeting deadlines sooner, or setting goals and being really firm about that. And having managed people before, when it's people you don't know, I find it easier to just be like, mate, it's not done, get it done. But when it's people who I know, it's a little bit harder. That's been one. The second one, I suppose, is you get so much rejection, especially the more you put yourself out there, and I really try and do that. So, yeah, kind of just letting that, when people like reject the idea, it's a case of why have they rejected it and trying to understand that, and then B, sometimes people are just a little bit off their heads, so you just need to like ignore what they're saying. I do that sometimes. And then I can't think, then the third most challenging thing, I suppose, is figuring out how you're going to finance everything and keep everything afloat. But that's a bit of a fun challenge as well.
Cool. So I think that's all the time we have questions. So again, Matt will be around during the break after the session. So can I get a round of applause, please?